All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy, what is it, Wednesday already? Wow. Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2020. This is the Pondering podcast and radio program. Welcome, one and all. Great to have you aboard. Listen, you've made it through half the week almost. Give yourselves a hand. Oh, good. Have you aboard. Thank you for joining us on Pondering, the show where we ponder things. I know, what a concept. We actually think about stuff. We don't just swallow the sound bites. And boy, we got some examples of how that can affect you today. No, we think about them, we talk about them. There are no holds barred. All subjects welcome. We can disagree even, but just, we don't have to be disagreeable. No imputing motives, no calling names. Otherwise, everything that I discuss, and most of the audience as well, comes from a unashamedly, unabashedly, unapologetically Christian perspective. And we do this every weekday, 7:30 to 8-ish a.m., and we're glad that you could join us here live, many of you. Good morning to Leanne. Good morning to Susie. Let me just wave here at Leanne. And Brenda's with us. There might be others I missed, so welcome. Sarah, great to have you with us. So, guys, you know the drill. Most of you can participate by typing into the live stream on the Pondering Radio page of Facebook. If you're listening via podcast, you can post on that page 24/7, 365. You can also email ponderingradio@gmail.com, ponderingradio@gmail.com, or you can call us at 860-500-7163, 860-500-7163. And we love to hear from you. Now, I didn't plan topics this week. There's so much going on. Someone posted on Facebook. I reposted it because I thought it was so apropos. They said 2020 so far is like looking both ways before you cross the street and then getting hit by an airplane when you do. The unexpected, the out of left field, the thing you didn't see coming. That's the year, and I think that's probably a great description. And we're just rolling. We're just rolling with the punches here. But I did find last night and this morning some examples of why we do this show that I think are so illustrative, and why it's important for us to think things through, not just react with emotions, etc. In fact, our whole country right now is running wild on emotion, and the result is devastating. And I don't think emotions are bad. Emotions are a gift from God. But I've often said this, and I know some of you are familiar with this analogy. I forget where it came from originally, but I've used it for years, and that is that, if you think of your life like a train, the mind, the brain is the engine, that sets the direction and, points you down the track. And then the cars in the middle are like your will, your choices, the things you value. And at the end of the train is the caboose. And the caboose is supposed to be representative of your emotions. In fact, in the old days with the steam engines going across country, the caboose was that. It was a place to go and relax. It was a place to eat. It was a place to have a glass of brandy and a cigar and look out the window at the great view. That was the purpose. Unfortunately, we've somehow over the years put the caboose at the front of the train. And unfortunately, the caboose can't steer, nor can the caboose pull, and it'll just end up derailing the train if it's pushing from behind. And that's where we're at as a country right now, sadly. And the media is not only complicit in terms of fanning that into flame, but just creating it at times to where people accept as normal, as true, things that are either blatantly false or just mixed, with truth and error. And that's how the enemy works. It's interesting to me that Satan is called the prince of the power of the air. In other words, he's a broadcaster. And our media is doing his bidding in many cases. Not all, but many. So a couple quick examples of why we need to ponder, why we need to think things through, why we need to talk. There was a story that circulated yesterday, and I'm sorry I didn't write down or copy these for time's sake this morning. I just got behind, but I'm sure you can Google and find these stories. There was a story of a shop owner who killed one of 4 looters who came into his shop. Now, the way the article was written is masterful because the headline makes you think, oh, gosh, really? I mean, okay, looting's bad, but did you have to kill him? Okay. Then you find out it's a gun store. You say, well, it's a gun store, but still, they wanted to loot the gun store. Maybe they were going to steal some stuff, but whatever. Don't kill them. And it's not until you read 3 or 4 paragraphs into the story, which most people never do. They read the headline, maybe the opening line, and that's it. It's not until you read about halfway through the article that you find out that one of the looters had a handgun. And not only did he have a handgun, he pointed it at the shop owner, who was holding a weapon himself, a high-powered rifle. And he shot him in the head, and the rest of them ran away. And you know what? I have no problem with that whatsoever. The guy's defending his property and defending his own life against criminals who are looting. I'm sorry. There's a difference between a peaceful protest and a riot, and the difference is the law. The Constitution protects peaceful protest, freedom of speech. You can march, you can hold signs, you can yell and scream, fine. But the minute you start throwing rocks at people, destroying property, burning buildings, trying to break in and steal things that aren't yours, you've crossed the line. Now you're a criminal, and you need to be dealt with. And by the way, as I said yesterday, if you really have a cause you care about, the cause is trying to be seen, have all men and all women seen as equal in our nation, and you feel like that's not the case, then the last thing you want to do is feed into the narrative that you think exists, that is, that you're criminals. And if you're an African American, you think all whites think you're criminals, you can't drive a nice car because you get pulled over by the cops, et cetera, et cetera. The last thing you want to do is support looting, burning, shooting, beating up, destroying, stealing, etc., because it does not support your cause. But unfortunately, that's happening now. Again, there are people who are peacefully protesting. I'm not talking about them. But unfortunately, mixed with them are groups, some of which are paid to riot and create unrest. And this story wants you to think, okay, the way it was written, the way the headline's designed, and again, I'm an old newspaper guy, as you know from our conversations with Tom Hansen, that I understand how this stuff works, okay? The way the headline's written, the way the subtitle and the opening lead are written, it's supposed to make you feel bad that these looters who are just, upset because of this horrible murder of this gentleman, Mr. Floyd, that they got shot. One of them was shot and killed, and senseless violence. That's what they want you to think. Don't want you to read further and recognize the guy had a gun. The guy that was shot had a gun that he pointed at a store owner, and the store owner was defending himself and his property, and he only shot the one guy. He didn't shoot the other 3. The other 3 ran away. They weren't armed. He didn't shoot them. He shot the one that was pointing a gun at him. And they don't want you to read far enough and think far enough to recognize that that was a just act, an appropriate act. And, it's just a great example of how the media twists things and wants to create emotion and anger and response and sympathy for those that are committing crimes. The other story, this is a bigger one, and I imagine you've heard this one from multiple sources, even Christian sources I've read, that really troubled me, made my blood boil a little bit. And I'm going to present it to you the way it's been presented almost across the board in the media, again, even sadly by some Christian media. The president sent out his troops, some would say, or the Secret Service police, sent out some have even implied thugs, and dispersed this innocent crowd of protesters so that he could have a photo op using the Bible as a prop. That's what you've heard. That's what's been repeated. That's the picture they've shown multiple times. And then they even went so far as when someone asked him, "Was that your Bible?" He said, "It's a Bible." So in other words, it doesn't mean anything to him. It's just a prop. Now, you've heard this repeated over and over and over and over ad nauseum. And again, he chased away the innocent people to make himself look good and look strong. But the rest of the time, he's hiding in his bunker, the wimp. So if he stays in a bunker, he's a wimp. If he goes out there, he's a thug. And he's just looking for photo ops and using the Bible as a prop. Now, whether you agree with President Trump on everything or not, whether you like him or not, quite frankly, that's not the point here. The point is, get the facts. The point is, ponder. The point is, go deeper than the surface. Because what I just presented to you is completely biased. and inaccurate in the sense of the impression it creates. And I'm gonna give you some little bit of background as to why I say that. First, though, let me quickly say good morning to Susie and to Sarah. I did, I think, and Brenda. I did. Jean Marie, great to have you. Melissa, great to have you with us. And Jerry out there in Southern Cal. Hope you guys aren't aflame this morning. Just all this stuff reminds me of the LA riots, but it's worse, I think, because it's spread so far across the country now. I'm sorry about that, everyone. But it's great to have you aboard, Jerry. So, as Paul Harvey would say, when you read about the brushing aside of the peaceful protesters and the photo op and the Bible as a prop stuff, you need to hear the rest of the story, right? As Paul Harvey would put it. The rest of the story. Okay, so what the media doesn't want to focus on is that the night before, some of those, probably some of the same people, now I can't say that for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if some of the same peaceful protesters attempted to burn down a church, St. John's. And in fact, it's often called the President's Church. It's where many former presidents have gone to worship. And so as an act of, peace and unity, they tried to burn the church down. Now, it didn't burn down, but it did damage it. And so the president sends the guys out to clear the path so he can walk down there. And it shows solidarity with churches, with the innocent, etc., and to make a statement which doesn't get covered in the press very much. I'll get to that in a minute. And so, yeah, because it wouldn't be appropriate for the President of the United States to walk out in the middle of this peaceful protest that had just burned down a church or attempted to before. I mean, come on. That would be stupid. And if he had done that and he'd gotten hit in the head with a bottle, they'd call him stupid for going out there, wouldn't they? They'd say, well, the president's just lacks wisdom. He's just cocky and, there's nothing he can do that wouldn't be attacked, but that's a side issue. All right. Anyway, I would have done the same thing. You want to go to that church, you want to make a statement in support of Christianity, etc., you got to clear a path because it's not safe. Okay? And whether everybody in that crowd was guilty or not, I can't answer that question, but I can say it would be unwise for the president to try to walk through the middle of those folks after what had just happened the night before. So anyway, he goes down to the church and he holds up a Bible and he doesn't just take a picture. He says, "This is what made America great." Now, I would challenge any Christian. I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, old, young, fat, thin. I don't care who you are. Can you disagree with that statement? I mean, isn't it the biblical truths about freedom where Paul wrote in Galatians, "It is for truth that Christ has set you free, therefore stand fast and let no one take it from you." Those principles, there's neither male nor female, right? Slave or free, all are one in Christ. Those kind of statements that were the essence of, the foundation of what our Christian founding fathers, most of them were, believed and read and promoted in creating the Constitution. So he's right historically, he's right ethically, he's right logically. This is what made, I'll hold up one. This is not a prop, okay? It's my Bible. This is what made America great. That's what he said. And why did he say that? He said it because the night before, these peaceful protesters had tried to burn down the church right behind him. And his statement was, we can't destroy what made us who we are, free, equal, etc. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We shouldn't attack it because this is what made us great. That was his point, and it was right on target, whether you like him or not, agree with him or not, whatever. But what's been reported is that he cleared out a bunch of peaceful protesters with thugs so he could take a walk, have a photo op, and use the Bible as a prop. And listen, I can't speak to his heart, but what he did and what he said was right on the money. So, be careful when you read this stuff, because when you read what the media wrote, it inflames you. You're like, yeah, even Christians, like I said, good Christian leaders I trust and respect have responded to this with vitriol that the president is using the Bible as a prop. How dare he? It's more than a prop. It's a way of life and all this stuff. If you respond to what the media gives you, it will make you mad. You will react emotionally. You want to punch someone in the face or whatever. But you can't trust them. You can't take what they give you at face value and swallow it whole. You've got to read the rest. You've got to look deeper. You can't get mad that a shop owner killed a looter until you realize that the shop owner was protecting not only his property but his own life because the looter had a gun. You can't get mad that the president cleared out a crowd and walked down with a Bible in front of a church, as a photo op, quote unquote, till you realize that the crowd, or at least probably some of them, we don't know if it's the same people or not, had burned down or tried to burn down a church the day before, and he was going to show support for the church in general, capital C, and say the Bible is what made us great. We need to get back to this. And he's right. That is the solution, as I shared yesterday in the program. What stopped the riot in Hartford from happening was peace and unity and troopers and protesters gathering in prayer. I saw it. And it was amazing. It was wonderful. I wrote about it yesterday to the team I work with. And it was a wonderful example of the power of prayer. And this has happened in other places too, by the way, other cities where police and protesters have hugged, united, got down on their knees and prayed together. And guess what? No bullets, no fires, no bodies. And so, absolutely, I think that's what should happen, and it's wonderful when it does happen. But the media doesn't want that. Do you understand? If you watch the scene unfold in Hartford the other night on local news, you would see a bunch of journalists just chomping at the bit, man. They were just sure there was going to be, there's something, something's happening over here. Oh, and then they pan the camera over, and what's happening? Oh, well, they're waiting for this. They're like anticipating, like you wanting to eat the first piece of pie that comes out of the oven. Here we go. And what happened? They talked, they joined hands, they prayed, and they dispersed. Because the rioters, these weren't rioters, these were protesters. Protesters knew they'd been heard. That's all they needed. And the police knew everybody was safe. That's all they wanted. And everybody went their way, and traffic started to flow again. Guys, there's a lesson in there. And it's not just that we come together and we talk and that makes everything work. It's that there's power in prayer because there's a God who answers prayer, and he can create peace out of chaos. That's the big lesson right there. But you can't trust the media, or you're going to get mad and want to throw a Molotov cocktail at somebody, because that's what they want. That's how they sell their papers. That's how they, promote their advertising. You cannot accept at face value what you hear on the news. That's why we do this show. And those are two examples of why it's critical for us to ponder and think things through. All right. Jonas, good morning. Grace, Jonas, oh, great. Great to have you with us. Jerry says, it's okay where I live. I have Bibles and guns. I can preach both. I prefer to preach from the Bible. Yeah. And listen, I've said this for years. I'm a gun owner. I'm a shooter. I was a competitive shooter in the NRA when I was 12 years old. I was a sharpshooter, third bar, and actually qualified as expert once, many years ago. And I'm not bragging. I'm just explaining that I have a lot of fun doing that stuff. That was what my family did for fun. We'd shoot skeet in the backyard. We'd shoot targets. We would hunt together. A lot of bonds formed that way over the years. I love people. I serve people. I'm a pastor first, but someone wants to come and damage my property and put my family in danger, attack my kids or my grandkids, I'm going to send them to meet Jesus. And I have no problem with that. I'll let him sort it out. I think that's biblical too, by the way, in case anybody wonders. Wayne, good morning to you. I'm going to wave at you. Great to have you aboard, my friend, as always. And I saw your post the other day, which I thought was excellent on Facebook, my brother. Good stuff. Wayne talked about, the craziness of what's happening and the need for peace. And I agree. And the peace will come, the peace that passes all understanding will keep our hearts and minds in Christ. When we turn to him, when we serve him, when we do what the troopers and the protesters on Route 84 in downtown Hartford did the other day. And I was so proud and so thankful for it that I wrote about it. I got emotional. It was awesome. I mean, listen, I know there are still evil people out there who wouldn't have stopped, even with that. In fact, there are evil people, agitators, paid agitators, some of them, who, if they'd had the opportunity, probably would have thrown a Molotov cocktail right into the middle of that group of people praying, just to create chaos and incite more violence. But the folks that were there were not of that heart. And when they gathered and prayed, and they know they'd been heard, they went home, and the police did too. And that was awesome. And I believe that can happen more and more often. Again, police can't overreact. Police can't, just get violent themselves against people who are just peacefully marching or speaking. But those who are peacefully marching and speaking also need to turn on those and separate themselves from those who just want to loot and destroy and kill, because it doesn't help. It doesn't help their cause, not at all. And in fact, it sends the opposite message of what they're trying to communicate. So those are my thoughts. And again, I thought this was an opportunity to show why we need to ponder. Do not accept at face value anything the mainstream media gives you. And I'm sorry to say that. It sounds almost conspiratorial and wackadoodle for me to say it, but it's not. It's not. I mean, they're intentionally misleading the public for their own purposes, both politically and financially. Politically, because they're mostly liberal, progressive, socialists, and financially because bad news sells. And I never thought, and even in the days when I quit because I didn't want to, be caught up in bad news, knowing that bad and ugly news sells, even back then in the 80s or 84 when I graduated from college, I knew then that bad news sells, good news doesn't. I knew I could get a job, but I wouldn't get paid as much, probably wouldn't be able to live off it if I wrote stories that were positive, uplifting, and truthful. But I never thought it would get to the point where nothing could be taken at face value, where everything that's reported would be biased and slanted and have an agenda behind it that was, in many cases, pure evil. But that's where we're at today. And my encouragement is, no matter what your news source, and we've talked about this before on the show, and maybe we'll get Tom back on here to kind of review that, some of the places you can go to find news that's a little more objective, factual, etc. But no matter what your news source is, my encouragement is read it all. Just like I tell people about the Bible, don't read snippets. People love cotton candy preaching. I don't know how else to put it. People like cute little, images with flowers and then a verse or half a verse, and that's the entirety of their biblical intake for the day. And they're spiritually uplifted because they got a verse and some flowers or a waterfall. Hey, it beats nothing, or a sharp stick in the eye, as they used to say. But that's not what God intended. He gave us his word in context. Every verse has a context, and you need to read it and study it and think about it in context to understand the deeper meaning and to not be misled by people who, unfortunately, sometimes do use the Bible, not just as a prop, as the president was accused of, but as a tool to mislead, to take things out of context, piece them together, and preach heresy, lies. You got to be careful. But I would say the same thing about news. Read it in context. Don't just take the opening, title, the headline, and the subhead, and even the lead sentence, and go, "Oh, wow! I guess I see what that. Yeah, that's too bad. That shop owner just killed some innocent people. Trying to survive. They're probably poor, and they were just trying to get something out of his store. No, that's not what happened." But again, you'd have to read the whole article to see it. So at least read the whole story. And if you see something on the 6 o'clock news, for heaven's sake, go read about it somewhere. Don't just listen to what the guy says, the talking head, because he'll give you, one side only and very biased. And, there were a couple scenes last night, and I haven't had a chance to look into this, but they kept playing over and over and over again last night on ABC News. And I was busy, so I didn't get to even listen to the whole thing. But I just saw the repeated video, and I've learned that when you see a video repeated over and over and over, there's a reason. They want you to think something. There were two scenes they kept repeating. One was a policeman smashing a cameraman in the head with his shield as he walked by. And the other was of two policemen pulling two girls out of a car who were screaming, "No, no, no, leave me alone." And this is me. Okay, and I don't know. I admit it. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm betting that the video of the policeman hitting the camera with the shield probably didn't start with him just walking up, hitting the guy in the head with a shield. I'm just guessing. And I don't even mean verbal exchange. I'm imagining more than that went on. Just because I know how some of these things go. And then the two girls, well, the interesting thing about the video they did show is that the car is like sideways across the street, right in the middle of a crowd of people, mostly police. And I'm guessing they probably tried to drive right through the policeman. And they stopped the car and yanked him out of there. But I don't know. And we'll probably never know. We'll probably never find out, because the image they wanted to give you was police brutality, police brutality, police brutality. In other words, it's not over. It didn't just stop with Mr. Floyd. Now it's getting worse. The police are causing all these problems, and they're bringing on all these riots, and they're smashing innocent people in the head. That's what they want to communicate, because it fans the flame, sells more papers, and gets them more advertising. Do not believe it. Get the facts, get the details, get the context. Think it through and ponder. All right, I'm out of time. God bless you guys. Sorry to rant, but I felt like this was a teachable moment. Good time to communicate again why we do what we do here on this show. Listen, have a great day. Stay safe. We'll be back tomorrow at 7:30. Tell your friends, neighbors, and complete strangers about us. Let's get some more people participating and pondering to think things through and not just accept everything they see at face value. Listen, guys, stay in the Word. Keep praying. Keep pondering. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.